Yep everyone, and welcome to another video, and in this one I'm going to be painting a couple of greyhounds in my usual acrylics. This is a commission by my own dad that I did a few months ago, and these are two of his dogs that he's got. He had a greyhound kennels, and these are two retired dogs that he's kept, and he's quit the kennels now. I don't do that anymore, but he's still got these two, and the names are Bobby and Tina. So Bobby is the black one and then Tina is the fawn one. The painting is A3 size and it's on the usual Fabriano Artistico hot press, and all the supplies that I'm using I've listed in the comments as usual, so you can go and have a look at them if you're wanting to know exactly what it is that I'm using. I've linked them all to me Amazon as well, so you can buy them easily if you're in UK. If you're in US it might be a bit more challenging. I've not figured that one out yet. To be honest, I'm not one of these that thinks that the exact supplies that be all and end all. I mean, as long as you get some decent quality paints, then it don't really matter exactly what brand you use. I tend to use different brands. I don't just use one brand anyway myself, so I think one of the things about an artistic journey is that you just basically experiment with different brands and what have you through your life, and you'll get some successes and some failures, and I just think it's part and parcel. And yeah, I know that art supplies are quite expensive and you don't want to be wasting money, but at the end of the day somebody else could rave about a supply and you'll buy it and you'll just not like it. So everybody feels differently about supplies anyway, so there's no guarantee that you're going to end up getting something and love it just because other people love it. So anyway, I got the chance to take my own reference photos of these two dogs, which I always like to do, but they weren't the easiest subjects whatsoever. They just didn't want to cooperate. They didn't want to look at camera and prick their ears up and look happy in any shape or form. It took some right doing just to... We eventually got some pictures of Bobby, but then Tina, oh gosh, eventually we managed to get some pictures of her by throwing some stones in grass and just waiting for her to just prick her ears up just for a second when she heard like the object, like the stone or whatever it were, just like fall into grass when we'd tossed it. So we were doing everything, but they weren't exactly good models for in front of camera, I'm afraid. The photos made them look like it were easy, but they definitely weren't, I'll say that much. It was nice to work from some better quality though. I mean, I'm doing a charcoal drawing at the moment, which is from an absolutely terrible photograph. So I'm always appreciative of photos that are better quality, because some of the photos I get for charcoal drawings, I won't use them for paintings, but some of the ones I get for charcoal drawings are awful. You might notice that the pupils that I'm drawing on Bobby here are looking quite cloudy, but that's because he's getting on in age, and it's quite a normal process for eyes to go a little bit cloudy in older dogs. They start getting like cataracts forming and that sort of thing. So both my old dogs, a bit older than Bobby, mine are both nearly 16 now, and they both have some cloudiness in their eyes. They can still see, but their eyesight won't be as good as when they were young dogs. I think it does show up some more in some dogs than it does others. Some it don't really seem to show up much at all. They'll all have it to some degree, but I think some just have it worse than others. It just depends on the dog. Also, regarding his coat colour, even though he's classed as a black greyhound, black greyhounds tend not to be very black. I find them to be usually quite washed out with a lot of brown tones going on. So there's not really much actual real black going on here, not like the kind of blue black that you get, you know, the really sort of deep black that you can get on some of the breeds like black Labradors and stuff. You can almost liken it to like a black t-shirt that's been in wash a few too many times and a few brown tones to it. Also, being an older dog, he's got a lot of grey coming on, a lot of grey hairs to painting. I always quite enjoy doing these grey hairs. I just tend to do the usual coat colour underneath and then paint these on top. It's quite easy to do in acrylic. And I find that black greyhounds do tend to be prone to premature grey and quite a lot of grey, you know, developing on the faces over time from, to be honest, fairly young age as well. One of my collies in particular, my 15-and-a-half-year-old, she's just not really got any grey at all. And then some others get a lot of grey, but I find in black greyhounds they do tend to be quite prone to premature grey around the faces. So now moving on to Tina, and she was definitely the more awkward two to get reference photos of to begin with. I think it also took longer to get her coloration right when I was painting her. I find that black dogs are always easiest to do anyway, so any other colour is going to take longer than a black dog, but yeah, hers did take longer than Bobby's. Anyway, I have been a little bit slow getting another video out, and partly it's because for the past 3 weeks, over 3 weeks now, I've had this really annoying cough, so it would have been quite difficult for me to be able to do the voiceover and that kind of thing, because especially on an evening when I tend to do this, the cough was just really blighting me and I just couldn't stop coughing, and it was getting in the way of my sleep, stopping me from sleeping. I was absolutely shattered. And I still have the cough, but it is finally petering out a little bit now, so that's why I've gotten stuck back into doing this whilst I've got chance. It's not very often that I get a cough at all. I don't really suffer from that many illnesses and ailments, so when I do get some, it's quite annoying because I'm just not used to dealing with it. So anyway, even though Tina's getting on as well like Bobby, you'll notice that there's not as much obvious grey on her face. There probably is some grey hairs, but it just doesn't show up as much against her lighter colouring. It is also important to note that the colour on her face is not uniform all the way across her face. There's places where it's lighter and places where it's darker. There are some colours where it tends to be quite shaded, so it's not just uniform shade all across. It can be quite different from one part at body to another and one part at face to another. I tend to get the darker tones put in first and the darker coloured hairs and what have you, and then I tend to come in afterwards with your lighter hairs, as I tend to explain in all my tutorials for acrylic. Working from dark to light is always easiest. I also find with greyhounds that they tend to have quite large eyes. They are sighthounds, so large eyes are an advantage to them because they hunt and work by seeing the prey that they're supposed to be going after. I mean, greyhounds are primarily for racing and what have you these days, and they tend to be quite prone to injuries, and they're not really much use when it comes to actually hunting quarry, you know, in an actual like wild environment, you know, in rugged and with lots of trees and bushes. They're not very good at manoeuvring. So in UK they tend to cross them with collies and other herding breeds, and sometimes terriers and what have you as well, and they make what they call lurchers, and it's these that they tend to use for hunting in UK. And pure greyhounds generally are still primarily just racing dogs on a track. I know that sometimes people in places like USA don't know what lurchers are because they're not very well known across there, but they are extremely popular over all at UK and Ireland. Lurchers like really big, really popular. A lot of people have them as pets and what have you. They're not just hunting dogs, so quite popular just as pets as well, and in dog sports and that kind of thing. So anyway, I've mostly done head now and I'm just working on ears, and you will notice in a minute that I am going to accidentally smudge some white paint on the nearest eye and that will stay there for a while until I notice it, and then I just paint over it. So that's the beauty with acrylics. If something like that happens, you can just paint over the top of it. And I am a little bit prone to being a bit clumsy like that, and sometimes smudging when paint gets on my hands, because I'm always leaning my hands on a painting because I've got hands that shed quite a lot. So I tend to lean up painting and forget there might be some wet paint under my hand. So I'm getting close to completing this now, and when I've finished the neck off and all the details on the actual dog, I do tend to use an airbrush just to fade off the necks into background so they don't look decapitated. I don't tend to film that bit because you can't really see very much anyway. I'm spraying in really short bursts, so I'm having to keep stopping and starting camera, you know, between spraying and then leaving it to dry for a few minutes. And like I say, you can't really see what's happening and it coming along anyway, so I tend to not bother filming that part. But I'll just show the signing it at the end. So if you liked this video, then please give it a like and leave any suggestions in comments. If there's any parts of this painting that you'd like a tutorial on, then let me know that as well. So that's going to be it for this video. I'll leave you with a few more final reveal shots, and then I'll see you in my next video. Bye!